All right, today we're going to get under the hood of how companies really work. And, in some pretty famous cases, how they spectacularly don't. We're talking about business ethics and corporate governance, and I want you to think about it like this. Ethics is the driver. It's the person behind the wheel, making the judgments, deciding what the right way to go is. Governance? Well, that's the dashboard, the brakes, the seatbelt, all the systems designed to keep that car on the road and out of a ditch.
So let me ask you this. How does a company die? I mean, you probably think it's this slow, painful decline, right? A gradual loss of customers, fading into obscurity. And yeah, sometimes it's like that. But other times, it's a sudden, catastrophic implosion. A complete system failure that happens so fast it leaves everyone just standing there, stunned, asking, what on earth just happened?
To really understand this, we have to talk about one of the most infamous corporate collapses in history, Enron. You see, back in the late 90s, Enron was seen as this unstoppable, innovative energy giant. Everyone loved them. But by the end of 2001, it was completely gone. Poof. It is the textbook case for what happens when a company's driver and its dashboard fail at the exact same time.
And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of the problem. This wasn't just about a few bad apples, a couple of rogue executives. No. At Enron, and honestly at a lot of other companies back then, bending the rules, faking the numbers, it had become part of the culture. It was just business as usual. And that kind of deep internal rot, well, it sets the stage for total disaster.
And once that cultural rot was finally exposed to sunlight, the collapse was just breathtakingly fast. I mean, for a whole decade, Enron was the darling of Wall Street. Then some whispers of shady accounting turned into a full-blown SEC investigation. In just a matter of months, the stock price absolutely craters. And by December 2001, it was over. The seventh largest company in the US just vanished.
So, what went so wrong? When you do the post-mortem, it really breaks down into a two-part failure. And the first part was a complete and total breakdown of the company's moral compass. This was a catastrophic failure of business ethics. You know, business ethics sounds complicated, but it's really just the code that guides decisions on right and wrong inside a company. It's the driver's judgment call. And it's not just about avoiding what's illegal, it's about actively choosing to do what is right. And at Enron, the drivers weren't just making a few wrong turns, they were steering the company straight for a cliff with their foot on the gas. Now, when we talk about right and wrong, things can get a little philosophical, right? But basically, there are two main ways to look at it. One view says some things, like, say, lying on financial reports, are just plain wrong, period. It doesn't matter what the outcome is, the action itself is wrong. But another view says, hey, what really matters is the result. An action is right if it produces the greatest good for the most people. Now, you could argue Enron's leaders were obsessed with the outcome, sky-high profits, a rising stock, but they completely ignored the fact that the actions they took to get there were fundamentally dishonest from the get-go.
And this brings us to a super important point. Legal and ethical are not the same thing. Not even close. You can do something that's perfectly legal, like selling tobacco products, that a lot of people would argue is deeply unethical. And on the flip side, an illegal act, like a whistleblower leaking documents about corporate fraud, might actually be the most ethical thing to do. Enron's accountants were brilliant at finding legal loopholes, but what they were doing was profoundly, deeply unethical.
But here's the thing, a moral compass isn't enough on its own. And that brings us to the second part of the failure, the breakdown of the corporate rulebook, or what we call corporate governance. You can have a driver with the best intentions in the world, but if the car's brakes are shot and the steering is broken, you're still going to crash.
So, corporate governance is basically the whole system designed to direct and control a company. It's the dashboard with the warning lights. It's the brakes. It's the independent mechanic who comes in to inspect the car. And its number one job is to protect the owners of the company, that's the shareholders, from the people running the show. It's the whole accountability system. And this governance system relies on a whole network of checks and balances between some key players. You've got the board of directors, who are supposed to be overseeing management on behalf of the shareholders. You have independent auditors, who are meant to check the math and verify the financial reports. And then you have regulators, like the SEC, who set the rules of the road for everybody. In a healthy company, all these groups keep each other honest.
At Enron, every single one of these systems failed. The board was either completely asleep at the wheel or they were actively being misled. And the auditors, the big firm Arthur Andersen, they weren't just neutral observers, they were basically accomplices. They actively helped Enron hide its mountains of debt. So the dashboard wasn't just broken, it was rigged to show a full tank of gas when the car was running on fumes.
So how do we stop this from ever happening again?
How do we design a better, safer corporate vehicle? Well, the good news is the fallout from scandals like Enron led to some major reforms, and they give us a really clear prescription for building a more resilient company. The legendary management guru Peter Drucker put it perfectly. The solution isn't just about better management, doing things right. It's really about leadership, doing the right things. This has to start at the absolute top of the company and become part of its DNA.
So how do you actually put that into practice? Well, it starts with a clear code of conduct, but just having a rule book collecting dust on a shelf isn't enough. That code has to be alive. It needs to be supported by continuous training, and, this is crucial, a culture where employees feel totally safe reporting problems without any fear of getting punished for it. And in the end, it all comes down to accountability, with the board and the top leadership taking ultimate responsibility for the ethical health of the whole organization. And here's the payoff, because this isn't just about avoiding disaster. Strong ethics and good governance actually build employee trust, which makes people more productive and innovative. They build customer loyalty, which of course drives sales. And all of this translates directly into sustainable, long-term value for the company. It's not just the right thing to do, it's just plain good business.
Okay, so you might be thinking, this is all interesting, but I'm not a CEO or a board member. Why should I care about any of this? Well, because these seemingly abstract ideas have very, very real consequences that reach far beyond the boardroom and right into your life.
Just look at this number. According to one survey, a staggering 76% of employees said they witnessed misconduct at their job in a single year. 76%! This isn't some rare problem happening at some other company far away. It is happening everywhere, right now.
And the fallout directly affects you, your job security, your retirement and investment funds. When a company like Enron collapses, thousands of people lose their jobs and their life savings. Just like that. It affects the safety of the products you use every day, and it even affects your trust in the entire economy and the health of our society. The ethical health of corporations is directly tied to our own well-being.
Which leaves us with one final question to think about. What about the company you work for, the brands you buy from, the stocks that are sitting in your retirement fund? What's their ethical health? Now that you know what to look for in both the driver and the dashboard, you're way better equipped to answer that for yourself.